Good, Judy? We're good to go? Perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Sullivan. I'm the Vice President, Student Experience here at the University. To bring welcome on behalf of all of the faculty, staff, and students at St. Thomas. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which St. Thomas University is located as the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, whose ancestors, along with the Mi'kmaq and past, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. As part of what it means to pursue a liberal St. Thomas is learning how to be informed and an engaged citizen, to understand how politics works, why decisions are made at different levels, how policies and laws are developed and implemented, what it might be like competing perspectives and priorities, and how individuals and groups experience access to services and opportunities differently. Why it is so exciting for us to host tonight's important event on our campus. Our students, who come from across Canada and around the world, St. Thomas University home, and St. Thomas calls Fredericton home. So thank you to the Fredericton Chamber, to the Canada, and to everyone in the audience tonight for showing up for Fredericton. And welcome to St. Thomas. So I'll invite Morgan to the stage to get things started. I'd just like to note, I didn't get a woohoo.
You gotta earn your woohoos around here, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, St. Thomas, for hosting us here this evening. CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to all of you in attendance and those watching via the live stream tonight. We are pleased to offer simultaneous translation wordly. For those at home, you can find the link in the description on YouTube, and those in the audience would have seen a QR code at registration. I'd like to thank Lincoln and Riverview Honda for the support to make that translation possible. We're very pleased to see such a high level of engagement for this event, and municipal government is the closest to our daily lives and the one we tend to interact with the most. So a big thank you to all three candidates to be our next mayor for being. We're sure to experience a big change in the composition of our city government after May 11th with a new mayor we know and at least 7 new council of incumbents reoffering. So on behalf of the Chamber and our board of directors, I want to thank everyone that's put their name forward to run in this election. We appreciate your willingness to serve this critically important capacity. We also want to thank and recognize those that served on council for the past 5 years, many of whom have served multiple terms of dedicated service to the city. That, of course, includes Mayor Kate Rogers, who has served a total of 14 years, 2 terms as councillor, and for the past 5 years as mayor. We've appreciated your engagement over that time and wish you the best in your next steps. Speaking of the city's mayor, let's get right to learning more about those that are seeking to replace Mayor Rogers for the next 4 years, Steve Hicks, Jenica Atwin, and John Reid. I am very pleased to introduce our moderator for today's discussion forum. Allison Sampson has over a decade of experience in multimedia journalism, holds a communication degree from Memorial University of Newfoundland, and a diploma in journalism from the College of the North Atlantic. This background, along with her current work as a senior associate at Porter O'Brien, makes her ideally positioned to lead this discussion for us today. Allison is going to provide each candidate an opportunity to make a brief opening statement, and then we'll ask the candidates to speak to a series of topic areas that they were provided in advance. We will then turn to the audience for a brief Q&A session, and we of course ask that any questions asked to the candidates be focused on relevant issues and asked in a respectful manner. And we will then return to the candidates for closing remarks to end the evening. So without further ado, please welcome Allison Sampson.
Thank you, Morgan. Allow me to adjust. As Morgan said, I'm Allison. I'll be your moderator tonight. I will be asking all the questions to these folks, and they will be timing them for 2 minutes in which they will ring a bell, and you will all get to watch me jump every time the bell rings. I will start off. We did a draw beforehand for who's going to go first, so we're going to go down the line, starting with Ms. Atwin, and then Mr. Reid and Mr. Hicks. Following each question, I will switch up the order just to keep it fresh so everybody has a turn to go first. I'll start with the first question. I'll start with Jenica. Jenica, coming up, please, for your introduction.
So good evening, everyone. It is always a special occasion when we gather in the Kinsella Auditorium. It has been a huge part of my personal story, my journey here, and so it's just great to see the engagement. And I think that it speaks to a lot of the challenges that we face as a city that so many people have turned out to hear us speak, to hear us share our vision with you for what the city can look like, and learn some of the ways that we might differ as well, find that contrast, and hear from your incredible questions as well, because again, you know best what our city needs. I also would just like to thank the Chamber as well. It's a huge part of our democracy to engage in these types of forums, and so it's so important that we're able to do that. And hello to everyone streaming in as well. Accessibility is critically important. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on unceded, unsurrendered Wolastoqiyik territory here in Fredericton. It's deeply important that we begin with that recognition. Je veux aussi souligner que la langue française est aussi importante. Nous sommes la ville capitale de la seule province bilingue ici au Nouveau-Brunswick, alors c'est important. Pour la discussion ce soir, je vais parler en mon première langue, c'est anglais, mais je suis un francophile, alors c'est tellement important pour moi aussi. You know, I had the honor and privilege of being your member of parliament for 2 terms, in 2019 and again in 2021. And it was absolutely the honor of my lifetime to be able to serve this incredible community. The leadership, the breadth of knowledge, the expertise that we house in this incredible city inspire me every single day. And it inspired me again to put my name forward for municipal governance. And a lot of people ask me why. I'm also a goalie. It takes one of those special kind of people, I guess, to want to put themselves in those positions. But it's because I love people. I don't think you should be involved in politics if you don't want to put people first in your decision making, and that's what it's always been about for me. I didn't reoffer in the federal election because I've got 2 little boys and we call Fredericton home, and I spent a lot of time in Ottawa. It was incredible. The education I received there will carry me through. I'll never forget the amazing people and lessons I learned in that space, but I wanted to come home. And when the opportunity arose to put my name forward as a candidate for mayor, I jumped at that opportunity because it really is the closest to the people. And I can't tell you how many times I was knocking on doors during the federal elections and municipal issues were coming up. And I was quick to point them to their municipal councillor, kind of connect them to those services, but I really wasn't able to deliver in that space. And, to be able to do that would really be incredible. And the possibilities, the optimism that I hold right now to meet those challenges is palpable. And those conversations have continued. So knocking on doors, meeting with stakeholders and engaging with organizations on the ground, we have the solutions. We absolutely are facing big challenges. We have to be honest about those challenges, but the solutions do exist. And once again, it's because of the people in this room. It's the people that call our city home. I focused a lot on 3 key pillars for what I want to offer for our city. And again, it's informed by our public safety task force. It's informed by our municipal plan. It's informed by documents that have been created by our city that is already informed by the people. And really, public safety has emerged as that #1 issue. We're going to hear a lot about that tonight. And when I think of public safety, I think about making sure every voice is heard, making sure that we have services in place, but I also think about things like emergency preparedness, climate resiliency, and so I'm looking at a kind of a systems level approach to addressing safety in our city. I think about connectivity. Being connected is about improving our communication. It's about having a more accessible, open city hall. It's about making sure that your voice is not only heard, but you're seeing that reflected in the decision-making process. It's about prioritizing that citizen-led change that you want to see. It's also about navigating our city. I've heard a lot about our transit options, about active transportation, about ways that we can better get around. And so there's lots of improvement there. There's also some federal funding envelopes that are opening up because we're going to need our partners in that space as well. It's also about ensuring that we have prosperity. As I mentioned, we've got a lot of social challenges. We can't pay for these things unless we have economic development, unless we have revenue generation, unless we're attracting investment, growing our innovation space. And so all of these pillars are interconnected, and that's why they really form the basis of my vision for Fredericton. But of course, it's your vision. It comes from what I'm hearing at the doors and in the conversations that I'm having. And so just thank you. I want to thank you all tonight for that engagement. It's been an incredible healing journey for me. It seems like a funny space to say that in a campaign, but but I just thrive off other people's energy. And so you're giving that to us all tonight, and I'm so grateful. And hats off to Steve and John as well. This isn't easy. As soon as you start talking, those nerves will start going away. So thanks again, everybody. I look forward so much to your questions and to the great conversation tonight, and thanks again to the Chamber. Thank you very much.
John, would you like to come up for your introduction? You can take it from up here or from your seat.
As everybody can guess, I'm new to politics. I've traveled around the country, and I've seen some things that may be useful here, and hopefully I can bring something to the table that is different. I am somewhat concerned of the dam breach situation here, and that I think there's a way to handle different things that may be coming up in the near future in our or in the next generation or the generation afterwards. I'm a no-nonsense type of person. I know there's a lot for me to learn if I do get in as a mayor, but I've learned other things before in my capacity at what I was doing, so I believe I'll be able to handle that. I am looking forward to raising wages for people here in the city and creating specialized work. I think there's an opportunity here to start a specialized provincial city-based entity for Canada-wide operation. I have a sample that I used when I was young that I worked at, and I believe that I can arrive at that here in the city. Other than that, I'll do my very best to do what I can for you.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll have Steve Hicks come up for his introduction.
Well, thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to be here. I would first like to acknowledge my fellow candidates for mayor, Jenica Atwin and John Reid. We've been seeing a lot of each other lately, and it's great. Also, the other candidates who are running for city council, I know there's a lot of them here tonight, so thank you for stepping forward. I'm proud to be a Frederictonian. I think it's the best place to live, work, raise a family, and build a business. But we have real challenges, and those require focus, discipline, and a clear plan. So a bit about me. My name's Steve Hicks. I was born and raised here in Fredericton. I graduated right here at St. Thomas University, where I majored in criminology and psychology, and I've spent my entire career in public service. I began with the John Howard Society. I worked in a number of different capacities, including one of the city's first outreach workers, working directly with vulnerable and unhoused populations. For the last 15 years, I've worked as a probation officer with the Department of Justice and Public Safety, and I've had the privilege of serving on city council for nearly 20 years. And I've knocked on a lot of doors over the last couple of months, and here's what I'm hearing from people. The main concern is public safety. I'm hearing from business owners about vandalism, theft, and disorder. It's impacting operations and customer traffic. Some examples include graffiti, property damage, theft from workplaces and work sites, and fires, including one that destroyed a long-standing local business. The bottom line, it creates uncertainty. It affects whether people are comfortable going downtown. And it's not just businesses. I'm hearing from residents. Some residents aren't feeling as safe as they once did, whether that's on the trails, downtown, commercial areas, and sometimes even in their own neighborhoods. And sadly, we're also seeing more issues regarding homelessness, which is largely driven by addictions and mental health. And we must balance this with compassion and accountability, and that has to be a top priority for the city of Fredericton. My approach is a coordinated, practical response, working with police, community safety service units, other community organizations, and other levels of government. We need to improve safety, reduce risk, and restore public confidence. Another issue that I continue to hear is taxes and affordability. And business owners, more than most people, understand budgets, priorities, and discipline. And the city needs to operate in the same way. by controlling spending, avoiding cost overruns, focusing on core services, and understanding the tax impact on both businesses and residents. We need stable, competitive tax environment. We need to support local business and attract new investment. And the last, final thing is growth and opportunity. And Fredericton has a strong foundation for economic growth. St. Thomas University, the University of New Brunswick, a growing tech sector, a smart, innovative city. Our community strengths include vibrant downtown, strong arts and culture scene, fantastic sports programs, wonderful restaurants, and a partnership with Satunsik First Nation. We need to leverage these by connecting our strengths, supporting innovation, attracting talent, growing tourism, and keeping our downtown thriving and welcoming. We must improve public safety to restore confidence. We must manage city's finances with more discipline. We must support businesses by creating a more competitive environment that includes taxation, and we must work collaboratively to move Fredericton forward. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you for those introductions and opening statements. We will get right into questions. Ahead of each question, I will let you know the order in which you will all answer, because I said I'll switch them up so that everybody has a chance to answer first. And just as well, if you want me to repeat them, let me know, because I will just ask them the first time, and if you want them repeated, let me know, I'll repeat them back, but otherwise you can carry on when the other candidate finishes. So I'll start with our first question. Economic growth. Fredericton's business community is looking for conditions that support investment, innovation, and long-term competitiveness. What specific steps would you take to make Fredericton a more attractive place to start, grow, and retain businesses? We'll start with Ms. Atwin.
Oh, I thought you were mixing up the order, but.
After the first question.
Okay.
My apologies. I see how that would be unclear.
I like procedure, for sure. That's important in your mayor. So, I mean, there's so much happening currently, I think, in our economic growth here in the city. We certainly have our knowledge-based economy that's really exciting. We've got our cybersecurity piece. We've got Ignite and Planet Hatch, which are incredible resources. But there's, of course, things that we need to do. And I've had many conversations with the business community, with individual owners, with chamber members, just to see kind of what that vision could look like moving forward. And it's really around, modernization. It's around looking at how we can increase our productivity. We know that's a problem nationwide, and how we can kind of boost our opportunities there. It's about increasing that competitiveness as well through, I think, strategic investments. It's also using technology and partnerships to enable civic innovation, solve municipal challenges as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can work together. I think there's examples. The McKenna Institute, for example, does great work as far as, coordinating those pieces, with the private sector, with local government, and with universities as well. So there's lots more of that. It's really about that collaborative piece, and I think Fredericton always punches above our weight in that space as is. There's also lots of conversation around leveraging our education system, working within the K-12, that talent pipeline. We certainly also want to support immigration as well, and make sure that we've got lots of folks choosing to come and live and lay down roots into our beautiful city. But again, those post-secondary and training institutions. And so we have this kind of perfect ecosystem. And I think sometimes it's just about that better collaboration piece and ensuring that all of the patchwork is really working together. And so, as I mentioned, that economic driver is essential for solving some of our social issues as well. And so that has to be kind of that foundational piece. And so really it's about listening to those voices. We have the Chamber of Commerce. We've got Downtown Business Fredericton Association as well. We've got Business Fredericton North. I think we need to further kind of collaborate in those three spaces and allowing them to really see that the municipal government is responsive to their concerns. And so really it's about boosting that productivity, leveraging some of the skills sets that we already have, but also, again, that talent pool. And my background as a teacher, I'm certainly interested in that education space and better ways we can do that matchmaking as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Mr. Reid, you were going to be second either way, so I shouldn't be on have kept you on your toes. You're up. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Economic growth. Fredericton's business community is looking for conditions that support investment, innovation, and long-term competitiveness. What specific steps would you take to make Fredericton a more attractive place to start, grow, and retain businesses?
Well, this would be a learning project for me, but I think it would be trying to establish businesses that are local, but yet cross-Canada version, so that we develop businesses that can compete across Canada. and just develop a rapport with employees and trades and that. So yes, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, thank you. Hear me all right? This thing's kind of moving on me. So economic growth, it starts with confidence and stability, and that starts with keeping our tax rates stable and predictable. Businesses are going to invest where they can plan. And also, with what we're seeing downtown in the various business districts, public safety is economic policy, and we need to make sure that our spaces are safe, because if people won't invest or shop in areas where they don't feel comfortable. So we have some room to do there. And obviously, we need to support local business. We need to promote local businesses wherever we can. We have a strong group with Ignite that does tremendous work in our community. And we have to reduce barriers, clear processes, timely decisions, really create an environment where businesses can succeed. And the biggest selling point we have is our city. We have an amazing city, as we mentioned earlier. We have beautiful trails. We have a wonderful downtown, arts and culture. So the city sells itself. We just got to make it, more predictable for businesses with regards to taxes and making sure that people are safe going to the business areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. And we will start with Mr. Hicks for the next question. Not so shocking this time, is it? Affordability. Rising cost, property bills, tax bills, utilities, and local fees directly impact both households and business operations. How will you manage municipal costs and taxation to ease pressure on businesses while maintaining essential services?
Yeah, so affordability starts with discipline at City Hall, and we need to be disciplined. So we have no shortage of needs and wants when people come forward. But we need a clear business case when things are brought forward, not just upfront capital costs. We need to know long-term operating maintenance costs, and we need to make sure that we keep our taxes predictable, because everyone in the community, we're hearing it going door to door. People are struggling. We've seen significant increase. Obviously, our community has grown significantly in recent years, so we've been in a growth mode. We really haven't put that focus on efficiencies, which Fredericton is very well known for. I was part of a council when we had to find millions of dollars several years ago. And I understand, when you're growing, sometimes those things get put to the wayside. But we really need to focus on that, find efficiencies, and protect our core services. Once our core services start to go, everything else falters. So if we protect that, keep our tax rates low, and make sure we're always looking for efficiencies, we'll be in a lot better position moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Reid, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think there comes a time when sometimes you have to raise the taxes in order to supply the services that you need. There's two different areas that I'm concerned about, and I think raising taxes in the dam breach zone and would help minimize the use of the area and establish a more reasonable out of the dam breach area use of land and so on. So that's the way I would handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin, would you like the question repeated?
No, that's fine. Okay. Does this work? Yes. So really, it's again about protecting our budget, ensuring that we've got that strong financial position that Fredericton's really known for in the municipal space. Continuing that fiscal responsibility is essential. I think any lever we have at the municipal level to protect affordability, we have to look into that right now. Again, you've mentioned the gas prices, energy prices are going up, so it's essential to maintain that current inside property tax rate. Also to continue to offer grants and contributions to community organizations. They kind of fill a lot of those gaps that we're unable to achieve sometimes, and so it's important to kind of keep your eye on that piece as well. And then, the other space is affordable housing. We do have an affordable housing strategy, and that's one of the key areas where we do have some of those mechanisms where we can make an impact. So we've got, of course, flexible zoning, financial incentives like the Housing Accelerator Fund. There's a first-time home buyers grant. So there's ways, again, of leveraging some of those opportunities through our partnerships as well with federal and provincial governments, looking at the Regional Services Commission and how we can better operate there as well to provide those services, because, of course, we have to maintain the level of services that we have in the city we also have to invest in that future as well. But protecting that property tax rate is going to be tough because it's about 80% of our current budget. And so we're going to have to be looking outside of that. Again, I talk about those investment opportunities, other ways to generate revenue as a city. And so it's incumbent upon us, as whoever's the incoming mayor and council to really split that difference. And it's certainly not about increasing property taxes.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Next question, we're going to really mix it up, folks. We're going to start in the middle with Mr. Reid. Then we'll go down to Mr. Hicks and then back to Ms. Atwin. So community safety and well-being. Safe, vibrant commercial areas are essential to business success and community confidence. How will you improve safety and well-being in business districts while supporting a positive environment for customers and employees?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Safe, vibrant commercial areas are essential to business success and community confidence. How will you improve safety and well-being in business districts while supporting a positive environment for customers and employees?
I think more active police servicing on that would reduce the crimes and so on, crime rate and so on. So I think that's the way I would handle that, by increasing the police services.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yeah. There's nothing more discouraging than some of the conversations I've had with business owners over the last number of months. They're frustrated. They want to see people get help, the compassion side, but they also want some accountability. And we need to make sure that we're providing that. One of the things I would consider is an expansion of the Community Safety Services Unit. Through my discussions with business owners, that has been very well received. They're very responsive in the community. And also on the trails, I've also been hearing it from residents. They're very happy with that. And that would also allow police to focus on more serious issues. Obviously, we have a big drug issue in our city, as other cities do, obviously. We need them to focus on that. So I think with that mix, and then also, making sure that we're working with other levels of government to provide services, treatment for individuals struggling. Because it's one thing about public safety, but then there's also the treatment side of things, and we need to make sure that, we have a robust detox system. We have addictions and mental health treatment for folks, because if folks want help, we need to be able to provide it. And right now, all those services aren't there. We have a very good, last night, the John Howard Society approved a treatment center. That's very good for the community. It's a step in the right direction, but we could use 200 more beds. Everyone knows that. But we need to recognize that if we don't protect our downtowns, we don't protect our business districts, jobs start to go away, and it affects our community. So we need to do everything we can to protect. And like I said, the community services, along with police, outreach, and prevention, those are the steps. Thank you.
Ms. Atwin.
So, the Community Safety Services Unit is absolutely a key resource. We've seen that even St. John and Moncton have replicated this model because it's had such a positive impact. And really, it's about freeing up our police officers to be looking at some of the more serious crime in the city, but having someone for the businesses to call when they need someone to just maybe someone's loitering, maybe there's an issue where someone feels unsafe, but it hasn't entered into that criminality space. And so really, it was about bridging that gap, and that's what the CSSU is all about. I was very fortunate to be a part of the Public Safety Task Force at the City commissioned, and it was really the first of its kind as far as a collaborative approach in this space. It got all service providers in a room for over a 10-week span, kind of take the silos down, work together, and find these solutions. And we've got 47 key recommendations that came out of that report. They're incredibly actionable. It just shows you exactly whose jurisdiction is responsible as well. And you can look online right now as far as the updates. So that's part of that communication piece as well, because for a long time, the residents were not feeling like they were being heard around the public safety issue. And so there's been some improvements. But talking to business owners, a lot of those challenges still remain. Part of it is also empowering them. There's education pieces to this. There's ways for staff to also be better equipped with de-escalation techniques, with mental health first aid, to be able to recognize maybe an unsafe scenario and know where to kind of share that resource with these individuals. There's outreach teams as well to kind of bridge that confidence level for them. So all of this is part of it. It's also about bringing back, I think, confidence in our police force as well. So there's some 19 key reforms that are moving forward for some of the issues that we've seen around policing in the city. So we're improving, and it's about making sure that we continue that momentum as we move forward. But I would like to just, again, that collaborative approach for the first time, I would say hats off to the previous mayor and council for really initiating that, because that's how we're going to find solutions to these very complex, multifaceted concerns that we have, is only by, again, getting out of our silos and working together and really, challenging some of our preconceived notions, kind of challenging where maybe some of us are kind of not considering other perspectives. And so it's also about listening to those with lived experience as well, and that was part of the Public Safety Task Force, so that approach is going to be key.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. You will also be answering first our next question. On housing. Workforce availability is closely tied to housing supply and affordability. These are growing concerns for employers. What actions will you take to accelerate housing development to ensure businesses can attract and retain workers?
So we need people to build those houses. I think that's a good place to start. There's been some initiatives through our federal and provincial governments to ensure that kind of the skilled trades are really supported in this piece, but we still have a labor shortage. So part of that's going to be finding who those workers are and bringing them to where we need them to be. It's also about finding less expensive ways to build those houses. So there's certain models that exist out there, whether it's prefabrication or you're building them in a warehouse. We've got to find a way to bring those costs down because we've done a great job, I think, in the city over the last few years in increasing that stock. The idea was to increase the supply to lessen the demand, and then costs would come down. We haven't really seen the fruits of that labor, and so I think we need to be a much more creative. I really look to non-market-based approaches to housing as well to support. Workers are at all different income levels, and we need to consider that. Some of those at the top range are well served in our city, but those in that middle bracket, new families, anyone starting to set out for the first time, they really need those supports. And so it's all connected, again, right from the workforce to the end of the line and where that kind of price tag is going to be. So we do have some levers. Again, it's exploring some of those partnerships. There's underutilized land in the city. There's different incentives that we can offer as far as working with developers, finding ways to maybe offer some tax incentives. And so there's things that we can do. We've tried some things. We have to try new things. We have to be creative and think outside the box because, as I mentioned, some of those efforts have not come to kind of the lowering of prices that we really want to see. And of course, there's lots of pressures there that are out of our control as well. So anything within that municipal space where we can apply those levers, it's incumbent on us to do that. And first and foremost, it's going to be updating that housing needs assessment. We have to get a good idea of the picture of what we're actually dealing with in the city. And so I know that that's happening right now with updated data because we did have a big explosion in growth, which is good, but it brought a lot of challenges. But now we're also seeing that growth tapering off. And so we have to readjust. And so really, again, it starts with understanding what that whole picture looks like and working with our partners.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Mr. Reid.
Well, back in the 70s, we had a cooperative program that we were involved with. And I believe that's a way to bring back housing in a great numbers by having co-ops and by getting CMHC and the feds to get on board with housing in that means.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, we need to support a wide range of housing, and this is something that current council has certainly dived into and done a very good job of providing that in the community. We have a number of developments that are going to be moving forward. You look at the Brown Boulevard development, that's like 900 units potentially coming on board, Doak Road. We've continued to invest in housing and make it easier for people to develop in our city, and we're starting to see some benefits. Vacancy rates are starting to rise. Hopefully that results in prices coming down, and there's obviously much more we can do. And this is a primary focus of City Council, and it has been for the last 4 to 5 years. Great work by Councillor Jenica. I know he's here somewheres. He's really championed that file. But we need to do more. We need to be on top of things. We look at different types of housing, obviously the workforce housing, the subsidized housing. There's all kinds of levers and ways we can leverage money, which we've done with the federal government. And this is a priority, and it needs to remain a priority because I can't imagine being a young person thinking about trying to buy a house in today's market. Coming to university, it's got to be intimidating. So we need to be supportive of that. We always got to look at different ways to leverage and move things forward, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. And the next question will begin with you. Infrastructure and transportation. Reliable infrastructure and efficient transportation networks are critical for productivity and economic activity. What infrastructure or transportation investments will you prioritize to better support business, operations, and growth?
Infrastructure needs to be planned and not reactive, and we do a very good job at that in the city with our asset management plan. We know what we have in stock and we know how we're going to pay for it. Investing in active transportation has become very key as we're renewing streets throughout the city. We're adding trails to those. You've seen along Crockett Street, we've seen it on Brookside, Crosstown Trail. It's very important to do that. And I think, you know, anything we can do with transit, we've made big investments there. I remember it wasn't long ago when buses were going across the bridge pretty much empty, and now they're full all the time. You go to the mall any time of day, and there are dozens of people lined up, and that's great to see. It's good for the environment. It's good for infrastructure. It keeps us from having to expand expensive road systems. So that's one thing we do very well at the city. Our engineering department is always taking care of our infrastructure. And yes, we have a large infrastructure deficit, but if you compare it to other municipalities, we are doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Reid.
Well, I think we have to expand the transit system to be a full service, perhaps not an all-night service, but at least a 2 o'clock in the morning service. And while you're seeing the increased ridership now, you would also see increased ridership if it was available to people for the entertainment side, and it would benefit in order to keep the trails empty at night. So that's what I would stress is increasing that transit system should be a full service till 2 o'clock in the morning, perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin.
So great to hear there's consensus around active transportation and public transportation. These are critical pieces to any thriving city, and so it's something I've been hearing across my conversations that there's real consensus around this. And so it's about increasing more routes that are specifically also north to south as well, as far as our cycling and pedestrian routes. It's ensuring that our transit has more consistent schedules, has better service areas, that we address the poor connectivity between residential areas and major hubs. It's also a connection to business and the labor force. Our transit is one of the maneuvers that we have there. Sometimes it takes a 3-minute drive by car can be 40 minutes by bus, and that's completely unacceptable. And so it's kind of looking at this again. We've made some changes and some updates. We thankfully do now have Sunday service. We have more of the half an hour as far as frequency of busing, but not in all areas. And so again, it's about taking that feedback from the folks who are riding the buses and really implementing those changes, and also encouraging more ridership. So as we're seeing those gas prices rise, many of us should be considering using the bus. It's also good for our sustainability goals. And so certainly having an emphasis on transit is going to be a big part of how we, respond to that growth that we've been seeing, but also live up to our expectations as a capital city. And so that's really exciting to me. I think it's important, though, as well, that we can look at some of the ways that we talk about these things, but it's also reflected in some of the votes we've seen around city council. So sometimes we don't always see that kind of correlation. Mr. Hicks, I know you've also sometimes voted against increases for transit funding, and so it's important that we walk the talk and actually do the things that we say as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. My next question will start with Mr. Reid. On vacant properties, do you think the city government should be more aggressive in pursuing policies that encourage the development of vacant properties? Do you think a carrot and stick approach would be more appropriate and effective?
Well, I think some of the vacant properties, wherever they are, should be used for shelters. I've looked at several of them across the city, and they'd be ideal to provide shelters for different areas, and other vacant properties should be used for housing development.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Do you think city government should be more aggressive in pursuing policies that encourage the development of vacant properties? Do you think a carrot and stick approach would be more appropriate and effective?
I think we can't let derelict properties sit. I think if we look at, and we need to encourage development, and I'm thinking of downtown at the Centennial Building. We see that property, it's been sitting there for several years, right in the heart of our downtown. And when we're talking about housing we want, there's a perfect opportunity to mix housing, to mix commercial businesses, right in the heart of our downtown. Perfect location. There was a proposal that came forward. which I supported and council did not, which would have had that project moving forward now, and we start to see some development there. Not everything's perfect, and we have to recognize that, you know, costs have gone up extremely high since COVID, after this building was bought. But the last thing we want is it to be further downgraded to the point where no one wants to touch it. It needs to be demolished. So I support the redevelopment of that, and I think any other opportunities that come up, we need to get on things as quickly as possible. We can't wait for the perfect development. But downtown core, to be able to do this with housing and maybe put some restaurants and some commercial in the basement or the bottom floor, that would be tremendous for the city of Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Ms. Atwin.
Yeah, so I think it's certainly a plan to use that underutilized land and to make sure that we're looking at all opportunities for those affordable housing pieces there as well, the ways we can work with developers or not-for-profit organizations and offer up some of that space. There are other incentives. You talk about kind of the carrot versus the stick approach as well. You know, of course, we want to ensure that we're using guidelines that encourage these types of, you know, beneficial agreements, but it's also ensuring that we can make sure that, you know, we're putting these kind of regulations in place, that we can use our voice on council to make sure that we have those shorter timelines. I completely agree with the Centennial Building. I think it's just gone on far too long. We have our own version of the Berlin Wall there that's right by our beautiful market space, and it's really an eyesore. I certainly understand, you know, wanting to have room for conversations around proper facades and respecting the heritage in our downtown core as well, but it really has sat for far too long. And so the fact that it's kind of changed hands with respective governments, that they're, you know, the plans have kind of changed and gotten lost over time, you know, it's to an unacceptable point. And we see where we can move quickly. We talk about expropriation with the MBX grounds, and so there's ways that we can move faster. And when it affects the overall kind of look and feel of our downtown, it's incumbent on any mayor and council to make sure that you act faster than that. So absolutely, I think, you know, we have to use both the carrot and the stick.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. And my next question will start with you. This one's for specific topics receiving lots of public attention. There has been a lot of discussion about a new public pool, the exhibition grounds, and pushing forward with development on the Centennial Building. What is your position on each of these topics?
So the pool, I think it's great to see that there is a ton of consensus there. There's, you know, just shout out to the pool folks. So I see there's lots of them here this evening as well. Yeah. It's really because of your advocacy, right? This is how well you're organized, the letter writing campaign, sharing the information, sharing testimonials about how important this is to our community. Because even those who aren't accessing those facilities, you know, they might not have thought about how it would impact their lives, but it's something that we need to have, again, in any capital city that's worth its salt. We need recreation facilities that meet that demand. And it's also such a low barrier, you know, recreation opportunity. It's for youth, it's for seniors, it's for everyone in between, it's for, you know, healing after a surgery. There's just so many applications. So when I think about the pool, I put it in a different category than other pieces of infrastructure. It's really one of the ways we can address some of our health outcomes in the city where we have limited levers around healthcare. So important on that piece. And as I mentioned with the Centennial Building, I think it's time to just hurry up and make a decision on that piece, really push the developer to ensure that they're, yes, meeting our needs, looking at the affordability piece. I know they were trying to make it a little less expensive for them. So we've got to find a way to work through those negotiations and just ensure that we put this over the finish line, you know, once and for all, because no longer do we want to look at that derelict building downtown. So absolutely, it's time to move. And that's also about leveraging, again, those federal and provincial partnerships to help pay for it, because we, of course, don't want to have to impact our property tax rates.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Mr. Reid.
Well, the pool, definitely, I would say that that's required. It's a required service for everybody in the city, and I would support that Centennial Building. I definitely think it should be cleaned up, and I'm not familiar with all the process with that in that way, but it should be cleaned up at least and developed, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yes. A pool, absolutely. It's long overdue. I think everyone knows that. And we need to make sure that we get on our partners, which I understand the province sounds like they're all aboard, and the feds, and we can get this finally done, because the crew's been waiting for close to 20 years, and this is not acceptable. But we need to do it responsibly. We need to make sure that our funding's in place. We need to know what costs are going to be moving forward, because we see what happens when we don't keep our eye on that with the Performing Arts Center. It's now at $111 million and counting. And if it was not for that, we'd probably already have this pool in the ground. So we need to be cognizant. We need to make sure when things come forward, we know the full business case, the full life cycle costs, so that we can plan moving forward and it doesn't affect future projects, because there will be other needs. Police station, that's bursting at the seams. We need office space. Our city's growing. There's lots of infrastructure needs. There's no shortage of that. But this is the #1 priority, and I think everyone that's been running's been pretty clear about that. And I'm pretty sure I covered the Centennial Building.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Our next question will start with you. On environment and sustainability, businesses are increasingly navigating sustainability expectations alongside cost pressures and regulatory requirements. How will you advance environmental goals in a way that is practical, predictable, and supportive of local businesses?
It's important to know that the city has always led on the environmental scene. We have a tremendous staff. We have an environmental strategist who is an absolute all-star. So whoever's successful as mayor, they'll realize what kind of talented staff we have available at City Hall to bring matters forward, to make sure we're making good, sound decisions, to make sure that, you know, we balance the needs with the financial realities. And can you repeat that again?
Yes, I can. Businesses are increasingly navigating sustainability expectations alongside cost pressures and regulatory requirements. How will you advance environmental goals in a way that is practical, predictable, and supportive of local business?
Yeah, so I think that's something where we really need to lean on staff to get them to lead us and make sure they're giving us good advice, working with the business community, because we need our business community to succeed. We don't want to put barriers in place that's going to make it more difficult to enter the business and to stay in the business, because everything's so challenging and so expensive as it is right now. We don't want to be a barrier. And I think with the help of staff and council making good policy decisions, we can ensure a situation where businesses can thrive and survive and still be responsible environmentally and sustainably.
Thank you. Mr. Reid?
Well, I'm not familiar with that area in the city, so it's hard for me to, it would be something that I'd have to learn.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin?
I think it's an interesting way to frame the question. I think that when we look after our climate resiliency, it's actually supporting businesses in meeting those goals and looking towards the future. A lot of our customer base also takes this as a very important initiative as well, and so sometimes it can be one of the things that leads them to frequent a business as well. And so really a lot of the levers that we have at the municipal space is very cost effective. There's ways that it doesn't impact the businesses in any way. So thinking about things like flood mitigation, for example. So, I mean, aside from the construction piece, which we do need to talk about, construction timelines affecting small businesses, but it's things like raising roads, it's things like upgrading our storm sewer, naturalizing shorelines as well. We have beautiful river to protect here, the Willistook. Underground power lines are increasingly more frequent in the city as well with new developments. Heat management, something we really need to be thinking about moving forward. We talk about out of the cold shelters, we need to think about extreme heat as well. I'm thinking about vulnerable citizens in our community, seniors as well. So there's some programs and grants that we can access there to help support those initiatives. So sometimes, again, it's just leveraging where there are existing pots of money if it's going to put some of those pressures on a business. But in the end, I think it's better for business because we sometimes kind of compartmentalize the economy and the environment, but they absolutely go hand in hand. Energy efficiency is another big piece as well. So yeah, I mean, just in general, as I said, a lot of these are not kind of cost prohibitive for businesses. So I think we need to go further with our sustainability because I actually think it strengthens our economic model in the city.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. My next question will begin with you, Mr. Reid. Municipal governance. Clear processes, timely decisions, and transparency are key factors in business, confidence, and investment. What changes would you make to municipal decision-making to improve efficiency, reduce red tape, and better support business growth?
Well, I'm not a business person, so that's hard for me to answer too, right? So I'm going on a platform that is what I'm going on, right? So I'm not really familiar with that area as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, good government is about discipline, clarity, and accountability. We know how to set an environment that allows businesses to succeed. So I think it's important that we stay in contact with our business community. I know we have a wonderful relationship with Ignite, with the Chamber, and find out where there are any holes. I believe we do a good job now, and I know Morgan would certainly let us know if we weren't, and other organizations are pretty quick to engage us. But that's the biggest part. It's about communication. It's about finding where holes are. We're finding what gaps are in place and how we can better support people. We don't have all the answers, but if we work together and we know the pressures, then we can make sure we can get things done.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Ms. Atwin.
I think there's quite a few changes we can actually make as far as culture shift at City Hall. A big piece is also is specifically around code of conduct, ethics. You know, these are the foundation for any good governance, and so it's really important. I think that onboarding experience for anybody new to municipal governance is to really understand what those responsibilities are. Increasing that transparency and accountability. City Council has had a rather bad habit as of late of moving to more in-camera, behind closed doors discussions, and it's actually in violation of the Local Governance Act. And so we need to be careful to make sure that we're compliant there. I think the more that we're out in the open with these kinds of conversations, it's the better for everybody. It goes back again to that communication piece and more opportunities to provide that feedback and then see the feedback loop where you're seeing some of that input actually action in the decision-making process. I'm a big fan of frequent in-person town halls, more of this stuff where we're looking at each other, we're talking to each other. I think that could mitigate a lot of the communication pitfalls we've had over the last few years. Managing the impacts of that local governance reform as well. So we've had some amalgamation. It's about bringing in those new parts of our community, the new neighborhoods that are feeling a bit left out as well. So a lot of this is about kind of seeing everything from that top level, but ensuring that, again, that we're responsive, we're accountable, we're transparent. And there's lots of guidelines that exist already. We just have to make sure we follow them.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. We will now be opening up to take some questions from our audience. Judy will be setting a microphone right here. We have a limited time for this, but if you would like to come down and ask a question, I ask that you please engage with the candidates respectfully and keep your questions brief.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to hear your thoughts on sorry, I get nervous, a lot of people. The City of Fredericton's contract with Garda World. So Garda World Corporation is a private security company that the City of Fredericton has hired to patrol the streets. And Garda World is a massive corporation. And so they provide security services, all around the world, including ICE agents in a South Florida detention center called Alligator Alcatraz. And the conditions there reported by Amnesty International include like a 2x2 box where people are chained to out in the sun. And so right now, City of Fredericton has contracts with Garda World. At least $700,000 for the Community Safety Service Unit, right? And the CEU unit as well. So, question to y'all, how would you respond when the citizens ask that you stop using taxpayers' money to go to Garda World Corporation?
I'll start with this, Ms. Atwin, and we'll go with our regular process.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And I think it's important to look at the procurement process for any municipal decision around contracting, looking at that supply chain, looking at what kind of impacts throughout the world and how this is going to reflect on our city as well. I'd love to look at the conversation around when that contract was made to see if that was a concern that was raised at the time. Perhaps sometimes it comes to being maybe uninformed with some of those impacts and again how it reflects on us. I do know that the city does have some oversight there, that there is a vetting process. So I think we should look to more local, more Canadian, less national conglomerates when we're trying to look at some of our safety aspects here in the city. And so as we mentioned, the CSSU and the CEU are incredibly impactful and kind of addressing our public safety shortfalls at the moment. But again, if there's a Canadian, especially locally based company, I think it's incumbent upon us to look there. I'd also note that there are other developments proposed for our city that have other rather compromising connections as well, including the Department of War with the United States. And so we certainly need to have a better reflective conversations around these procurement processes.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Mr. Reid.
Well, I think we should look at different options, Canadian, and of course not withstanding finishing the contracts that are with Garda for the time being, and then look to other sources.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, I have to be clear, that's the first time I've heard that. I know locally they provide a good service. Oh, sorry, it keeps falling down on me. So it's something to consider, but they do provide a good service. There's local people that work for Garda. And obviously, that's something we can look into, but right now, we have issues and concerns in our community. The community doesn't feel safe, and this is one of the tools we have to help make people feel safe. And when we hear from businesses, they say this is working. This is something that is responsive. They're able to deal to these lower priority calls so police can focus on other matters. Hearing from residents on the trail that said they've been very responsive to them. So I don't want to turn this into a major global issue, but locally we've been well served by this organization. But I am glad that the issue was brought up. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take our next question. We will limit the questions as we do have a specific amount of time to fill here. But our next question, please.
Greetings, mayoral candidates. Sacrifice in privacy to serve publicly is a very honorable thing to do. Thank you for advancing your principles, and your leadership, as you know, can be lonely. One of you is going to be mayor. I'll be praying for you, and I'll stand ready to help you in my area of expertise as needed. In the past 7 years, I've worked directly with addictions and homelessness and truth and reconciliation in the Woolstook and Nashwauk valleys. I have tried very hard to hold the John Howard Society Fredericton accountable for its practices and policies. Here's my question. On the day he died, Sterling Hunter was banned from the Oak Centre. He was unable to retrieve his belongings as per social development approved John Howard Society policies. As mayor, will you support David Kuhn's request for a coroner's inquest into the death of Sterling Hunter?
Starting with Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, this is provincial area, and I'm sorry your friend passed away. That's unfortunate, and we're seeing a lot of unfortunate deaths in our city. The addiction, the mental health, people that are unhoused. It's very difficult and hard to see, and we're seeing more and more of it. So yeah, I would support looking into it and seeing what happened. But this is not on the John Howard. The John Howard's a wonderful organization, and they do a lot of great things in our community. We have 2 projects that came forward last night, one for an addiction treatment center, where they're going to be able to help and change a lot of lives, hopefully save some lives. They have a youth center that's coming forward. They do tremendous work, and sadly, things happen, and it's hard to hear, but let's just remember that all the good that this organization does in our community, and I'm proud of the work they do.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Reid.
Yes, I would support a coroner's inquest, of course. I'm a little concerned about the placement of this unit in Lincoln. I think it's too close to the accessibility of drugs, and I would like to see it out in a little farther district away from accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin.
I think, again, it's important to find out what the lessons can be learned from that situation, and so a coroner's inquest can certainly shed some light on that situation. I know that one of the key findings would be that we have continued barriers to access. We've heard a lot of stories around individuals who have experienced being banned. Usually it's a safety concern. There can be a lot of different reasons for that, but we need to have somewhere where those folks can go. And those conversations are happening within our network, and their new options are starting to come online, but specifically around kind of the high acuity folks who might be the ones who could be active psychosis or, you know, actively in an addiction phase. And so it's harder to find spaces for them in our current network. And so right now, again, it's about leveraging with our partners to find ways to fund these different spaces that are low barrier. You know, I've heard the term eviction proof as well. And so there's just, it's understanding that there's going to be high needs. There's going to be issues sometimes that are more than what our current network is able to deal with. And so I'm sure that's what would be part of the recommendations from any inquest. But I think it's important to know what the whole story is for sure.
I've been trying to talk to you for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. We'll have our next question.
Hello. This is kind of related to what Buddy was just talking about, but Fredericton's only low barrier shelter out of the cold is closing down this week, leaving a critical gap in services for Fredericton's homeless and precariously housed population. In my work with this population over the past year, I've been struck by how readily housed people in my community, people I would have otherwise thought were kind, caring, compassionate neighbors, have mobilized against resources like the Out of the Cold shelter and the Transitional Housing Project in Forest Hill. It's clear to me from conversations about these services and from some of the conversation here tonight that many people struggle to distinguish between safety and comfort. So my question is, first, do you have any ideas on how to address the critical gap in services being left by the shelter closing? And more broadly, how do you plan to navigate situations where your more vocal and privileged constituents are asking you to appeal to their interests at the expense of our most vulnerable community members?
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Reid. Oh, am I out of order? We'll start with Mr. Hicks.
Okay, sorry, yeah. We need to make sure we have the proper amount of shelters in our community. It's the first step for people that are living rough so they can get back on track and connect with resources and begin to get their life back. We recognize there's challenges in the community. There's challenges in neighborhoods where these facilities are erected, but we need to have them. And without them, this problem's only going to get worse, and you're going to have more issues in your community. So we need to be open with people. When we know something's coming forward, let's start having that conversation early so that we can get ahead of it. We can educate people because there's a lot of good work being done there. And if we can get them in shelters and get them connected, then we can get them into transitional and supported housing and begin to get their life back. But we need to be firm, and we need to make sure we provide spaces and hope for these people, because it's unfortunate that it's closing moving forward. But we also have to recognize that Fredericton can't handle this burden alone when it comes to cost. We have a lot of costs that are associated with these facilities because a lot of people, unfortunately, aren't successful when they're in there, and they end up on the streets and policing and healthcare costs. So there is a cost, and we know it was $8.7 million last year to service this population. So we have to be realistic that we can't be investing capital into these sort of things, but we can make sure we ease zoning, and we can make sure we educate the public and be upfront with them when it's coming forward, so those conversations can start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin?
So thank you so much for that question. And we've been hearing a lot actually throughout the community, in, discussions at doors. A lot of folks are really concerned. And so at first it just shows how caring and compassionate our community really is. And I know also the Oak Center was worried about kind of the extra pressure that they were going to be feeling in response to the shelter closing. And so again, it's about making those decisions earlier on. We shouldn't be waiting until it's at this crisis point and until we have a response. We have to be much more proactive. And I think the question as well about how do we deal with some of the sentiment, some of the ways that other community members might question the comfort level versus the public safety piece or how they're perceiving this. And I think it's, as a city council, we have to own the decisions that we make. We have to better communicate them, show the data, show the research, show other models and jurisdictions where this is working, and really explain and bring people along. So it's that buy-in piece. So the courtyard, for example, in Forest Hill is a really good example of that, where we didn't do a good job at communicating, and people got very upset because they weren't sure how it was going to affect them. Of course they're going to have questions. It's near a school, it's near a residential area. We can have those conversations in an open, safe space, but make sure we have the right answers for them as well. And so you'll see there's 3 courtyards like that in St. John, for example. And so I know the developers that work with those communities, it was a lot easier to work with St. John than it was to work with our city council, because sometimes we do a bit of finger pointing. We don't tend to own up to some of these big decisions that might be tough, but we have to make tough choices as we face down these challenges, and it's about better communication.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Mr. Reid.
Well, we just talked about that a little while. We do need places. There's no question. We need places for the unfortunate. I suggested over at the exhibition grounds that unit would likely be well served. It was served with a park, for a travel trailer park, and then at the same time provide tents, but again for people that are homeless and so on. But at the same time, we need to put in shelters in that dam breach area, and we can use those shelters to house those unfortunate that are in there.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. We'll take our next question, and this will be our last question, as we do have limited time tonight. I know there's quite the line, but thank you for participating.
You can send an email, I'll answer it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, the candidates, the moderator. I'm part of the Fredericton Latin community, and we're very grateful to have received funding from the city of Fredericton for our Latin Arts Festival, which is this Sunday from noon to 5 at the Farmers Market. You're invited, of course. But here's my question. When we're addressing budget and finding efficiencies that I've heard a couple times today, often multicultural organizations and grants are the first things to be cut. How will you support multicultural organizations in the city?
Ms. Atwin, we'll start with you.
I love the shameless plug there, so I hope everybody goes and checks out the wonderful event. Well, really, there's a new plan that the city of Fredericton is commissioning, and it's around creative cities. And again, it's about this being a huge economic driver. So there is a cost-benefit analysis when we invest in these kinds of things, and it also brings people together. It grows our sense of community. It helps with that isolation piece that's also a big issue in our society. And so, absolutely, I think it's important that we're balancing things. Of course, we're looking at that budget, but those investments in cultural spaces and cultural activities are I think, essential. And so they would absolutely be a priority for me.
Thank you, Ms. Reid. Ms. Atwin, Mr. Reid.
They're an absolute priority for me as well. Multiculturalism is something that I've been around all my life in my travels across Canada, and I feel they should be supported.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Mr. Hicks.
I as well, and efficiency is about operational stuff. We continue to invest heavily in our grants, and we need to make sure we invest in the Multicultural Association. We have a very diverse community now, and we're a lot better community for it. So I can assure you, if I'm elected as mayor, you're not going to be getting anything taken away from you. Hopefully we can build and make a more inclusive, better community for everyone. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for answering our questions. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for their closing remarks, and we will begin with Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, thank you to the Chamber and all of you for attending tonight. It's been a wonderful turnout. It's great to see so many people who are engaged. And I want people to remember, Fredericton is a great place to live, work, raise a family, and build a business, and we should all be very proud of that. We do have challenges. We've heard that from businesses and residents. And my key issues are public safety and affordability. They've been well documented. And a stable, well-managed city. Obviously, we want to take care of our resources and our infrastructure so we continue to provide the service that people in the city of Fredericton expect. People are looking for steady, practical leadership that delivers results. Leadership that focuses on getting the basics right and making decisions that stand up over time. Safe, affordable, and well-managed. That's the city we deserve. And that's the approach I will bring if I'm elected as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Reid.
Now, yes, we need safe Fredericton, safe Fredericton. I think we can accomplish this through the trail system that exists now by having curfews. And I think that it's not like in Toronto where you have a trail and all the buildings are around it and it's all lighted and so on. So there's areas of the trail that if you want to bring safety to the city, you should maybe either gate them off or put a curfew on the time. I'm looking forward to taking on the job, but my priority is more towards trying to provide a safe Fredericton for the dam breach zone, and I'm also worried that other things might affect it too as well. So I'll be bringing that forward in the next things that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Ms. Atwin.
Well, thanks so much, Allison. You did a great job as well. In preparation for this evening, it was really just about, pulling together all the notes and the handouts and the little scraps of paper from all the meetings that I've been having over the last few weeks. And it really, again, just highlights the expertise that we have in our community to face down the biggest challenges that we have right now. And so it's about listening. It's about that outreach. It's about engaging. And then it's about circling back and actioning those very real, tangible items that I know can make a difference. And I talk about, my past experience as a federal representative, and this is really about bringing that experience to the table. It's about having that cross-sector approach, knowing how to collaborate, leveraging those provincial and federal relationships, because again, the challenges we face are big, and we don't have time to kind of figure things out. We've got to hit the ground running, because we're only going to achieve more issues in the future. And so this is something for me is about, I wouldn't have put my name down had I not thought that I was the person for the job. It's about sacrifice, it's about making those hard decisions, and it's about communicating and not being afraid. And so I feel like I'm a bold leader, I'm a collaborative leader, I'm a positive leader, and that's really the vision that I have for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atwin. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and tuning in on the live stream. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our candidates for stepping up to the plate and running for mayor for City of Fredericton. And thank you to the chamber for having me as the moderator tonight. Have a great night, everyone.